Welcome once again to Hillview University. Continuing on our database programming class, today we will be installing SQL Server 2012. My name is Olugbenga Okuntoku. We will be installing the developer edition of SQL Server 2012. This developer edition gives the full version of SQL Server. The Enterprise Edition is exactly the same thing as Enterprise Edition. However, you cannot use your production server on the Developer Edition. For students, a great resource that Microsoft has out there is DreamSpark. So if you visit dreamspark.com, you will be able to get the developer edition, the full version of the developer edition from DreamSpark. You can go to the student tab, and in the student tab you have your software catalog, and in the software catalog you can find out that under the server and application tab or area, you can find out that you have your SQL Server 2012 full download from this page. I would implore you to register on this site, and you'll be able to access not only SQL Server 2012 but a whole lot of applications that Microsoft has given for free to students to be able to develop and practice on the skills that they are learning. DreamSpark requires a valid student email. Microsoft will verify, but this is a very quick process. So you will need a valid student email address to authenticate you as a student. But if you're having problems, just contact me. I will give my contact information at the end of this installation, and I can help walk you through on how you can get this software from DreamSpark. Now, the minimum requirement for installing SQL Server 2012 is what I have on the slide. We have the .NET framework. Before .NET 3.5 used to be included in the setup, but right now you would have to install .NET 3.5, the Service Pack 1, to be able to continue with installation of SQL Server 2012. However, .NET 4.0 comes included with the setup. Your hard disk drive, the minimum available hard disk space should be 6 gigabytes. Your memory recommended is 4 gigabytes, and the minimum to be able to run this software is 1 gigabyte. The processor speed, the recommended is 2.0 gigahertz or faster, and your processor types are listed below. Your system requirements can be you can get information about system requirements from the TechNet site that I have the link below. I'm installing on Windows 8. I'm installing SQL Server on Windows 8, and chances are, if you are installing SQL Server, your computer already has more than the minimum or recommended system requirements. So I got my image file from DreamSpark like I showed you, and I already have it on my hard drive. Right here is, let me show you the desktop, and right here is where I have the ISO file, and I've already mounted the ISO file. I have a video out there for how you can mount ISO files on Windows 8. Again, if you have any problem with the operating system you're using, just contact me and I'll be able to walk you through. So in your ISO, in your drive, you will find out, including among many other files and folders, you have the setup. The setup file, which is the application file, is what you would double click to start off your installation. Microsoft asks if you want to allow SQL Server to make changes to your computer. Click yes. Setup launches as the SQL Server Installation Center, and on the left you have your steps. You can go into all these resources to see what obtains or what you have available to you in SQL Server. And on the right now we are on planning. You can find out resources that are available to you. We are interested in installation, so we click on the installation link, and the installation center comes up with these four installation types: new SQL Server standalone installation or add features to an existing installation, the new SQL Server failover cluster installation, add node to a SQL Server failover cluster, or upgrade from SQL Server 2005, 2008, or 2008 R2. What we're interested in on this computer is a standalone installation, and it's a new standalone installation, so we click the first link. Setup processes your current operation, and it identifies any problems that might occur during your installation. For right now, we find out that setup expects 0 failures, 0 warning, and we can virtually continue with installing SQL Server 2012 on this machine. So we click OK. Tells you that you should wait while it processes the information. One good thing about getting the developer edition from DreamSpark is it comes with its product key. So you have the full version, like I said, of SQL Server being installed and not the Express edition. You have the full version of SQL Server installed on your system. Click next. This is where you accept the license terms and allow Microsoft to use your computer to use information about your hardware configuration and SQL Server components on your computer. So you click accept, which is enough for you to continue. Once you accept the license terms, you can click next, but normally I just click this next one so that Microsoft can use data from my hardware, to see how SQL Server functions. It is not required. You might or might not want to click this next one. If you do, it doesn't hurt anything. So click next. All right. So product updates. always install the latest update to enhance SQL Server security and performance. So here we have an update called SQL Server 2012 SP1 GDR setup update. We're going to accept that because it's just 26 megabytes, and then we click next. Right now, SQL Server is trying to install setup files on our machine. SQL Server setup will now be installed. If an update for SQL Server setup is found and specified to be included, the update will also be installed. So it takes a while to go through these tasks and tells you the status of the task on the right. So right now it has scanned for product update is completed. It's downloading setup files, which is in progress. It goes to extract setup files and then install the setup files. Once this is ready, once everything has been completed on the right per the status, we can continue with our software installation. All the tasks have completed successfully, and SQL Server is now setup is now installing SQL Server Service Pack, SQL Server 2012 Service Pack 1 on your computer. So it goes ahead and set up support rules is the next step. Set up support rules identify problems that might occur when you install SQL Server support files. Failure must be corrected before setup can continue. And if we look at the operation, we see that it passed 6 for the support files, it failed none, and there's a 1 warning. This Windows firewall warning, you can actually ignore that because it's just based on probably the antivirus that you have on your computer. But if it's a warning like this and it's not a red mark that is a failure, you can actually ignore that and click next to continue the installation. So we click next and then we come to the setup role, and this asks us what type of installation do we want. We have the SQL Server feature installation that installs SQL Server database engine services, analysis services, reporting services, integration services, and all other features, or the SQL Server Power Pivot or SharePoint, or all features with default. What we're installing now is a feature installation because we want all these services to be installed with our SQL Server 2012 installation. So we leave the selection at SQL Server feature installation and we click next. This is where you select the features that will install. Depending on the hard drive space that you have for SQL Server, you can either select all you can select all by coming here and select all. It will select everything, all the features of SQL Server, and install on your computer. For this demonstration, we will install all the features, but I want you to be aware that you can actually select the type of features that you want on your installation. If you want the database engine, you can select that, and whatever you want, as an added feature. You want replication, maybe you don't want full text, but you want data quality services, you want analysis services, you want reporting services to be native, and then you can actually choose what type of feature you want for this installation, this instance installation. However, for the benefit of this demo, we are going to actually select all the features. And once you select all the features, SQL Server tells you what directory it is going to install to. Is your C directory, your program file, and it's going to create a folder called Microsoft SQL Server. So you can click next. Once again, installation rules checks to see if there is anything that would not allow you to successfully install SQL Server 2012, and once it shows you all green, you can click next. Right now we are in instance configuration. Here we need to specify the name and ID, the instance ID for the instance of SQL Server that we are going to install. Since this is not a named instance, this is the default instance that we have that we're going to install on this machine, we leave this default instance selection, and the name will be MS SQL Server, and the instance root directory will be what you have right here. And note also that it has also set up a directory for analysis services and reporting services also. So you have your SQL Server directory as MSSQL 11.MSSQL Server, and then the other ones as that also. But this is our default instance, and we will leave it as such. If we had gone ahead and finished this installation and we wanted to install another instance of SQL Server, which will be our named instance, then we will then choose the second option, the named instance option. But since this is our default, we click next. Now SQL Server checks to see the amount of space that is going to be used for this installation, and then it tells you that 8,946 megabyte of space, that's 8 gig, about 9 gig is required, and then we have this amount of space left. So like I said earlier on, when we were choosing the features, depending on your resource availability, you can decide to choose what feature you're going to install on this installation. However, since we have more than enough space available, we have gone ahead and chosen select all for our demonstration, and it shows us how much space right here that we're using. So this is fine. We can actually go ahead and click next. Now your service accounts. Now for SQL Server installation, these are the services that are going to be running, and they are going to be running under this account name. This is a demo, so we are going to leave the account name that is going to be running those SQL Server services. We're going to leave the account name as the default, but on your production server, or when you transition to work, those account names will be Windows accounts that have the necessary security to be able to run these services. And SQL Server runs on the least privileged account. You don't run SQL Server services with accounts that have that have rights, that have high rights in your Windows domain. You use Windows accounts that are created specifically to run these services. These accounts right here are the system accounts. They are privileged accounts. You will not do this on your production server, but for the basis of this demonstration, we're going to leave it as these privileged accounts right now, and we click next. Now, how do you want how do you want SQL Server 2012 to authenticate your users? You can use Windows authentication mode, and you can also use your mixed mode, which is SQL Server authentication and Windows authentication. Then it asks you to specify the administrators that will be using this. Again, in your production server, or when you transition to work, your administrators will be your Windows accounts. However, for this demo, we are going to add the current user as the SQL Server administrator. So we click the add current user, and it shows you the name of the current user. If you have more than one, you can add using this button, and if you want to remove anything, you can remove using this. However, we use the Windows authentication mode, and we specify the SQL Server administrator. Once we do this, we continue by clicking next. Right now, it is asking us for the analysis services mode, and also the administrator that will have the administrative permission for analysis services. Again, we use, for this demo, we had the current user as the administrator for analysis services, but like I said earlier on, in your work environment or in your production server, you only create accounts for your Windows account to be able to manage your SQL Server database engine or any other services that are running your SQL Server. So for this demo, we had the current user. This is a privileged account used only for the benefit of this demonstration. You do not use privileged accounts to set up these services on your production server. We will deal with security, SQL Server security in one of our classes. So for this demonstration, we use the admin user as our administrator, and we click next. Reporting server. The next screen gives you the reporting services configuration, where you specify the reporting services mode. The reporting services native mode is what we are going to be installing, and the reporting services integrated mode with SharePoint we are going to install only. But for the reporting services, we are going to install and configure. Click next. Distributed replay controller. Here again, we have the current user as the admin, and we click next. For the distributed replay client, you can leave the controller name empty and accept the default, and click next. Now, your error reporting, you can choose to send Microsoft, the error reporting, or you can choose not to. I choose to, because I got the software from Microsoft for free, and I decided to choose to report to Microsoft for this installation. So you can click next. And once you do that, setup checks again to see the installation configuration rules, and it says that we passed 7, we failed 0, there's no warning, and we skipped 0, so we are fine. And we can click next to be able to install SQL Server. We are ready to install SQL Server right now, and it gives you a summary of what you are doing. Now, the edition we are installing is the Enterprise Edition. Like I said earlier on, this is the Developer Edition, but it's the same thing as the Enterprise Edition. The only thing Microsoft asks of you is that you do not run your production environment on this server. This is just to give you the full-fledged features of what you will be using when you transition to your work, your career as a database administrator or a database developer. So this is the Enterprise Edition of SQL Server that we are installing, and it tells us the prerequisites that we've been able to meet. You find out that we did not install any of this. This just came installed. We were already installed by Windows updates on our machine, but it tells us everything that we are installing as a summary. You can see the features that we are installing right here. We are installing all these features. We chose the full feature. Then we have the instance configuration. This screen shows you a summary of everything you have done up till this particular minute, and it tells you that you're ready to start installing SQL Server. Once you're sure that everything you want is what you have here, you can click install. If you still want to make any changes, you click back and make your changes and step through the same number of steps that we've come from. However, this is fine. This is all we wanted to install, and we're ready to click install. So here we go, install. SQL Server takes a few minutes to install on your computer using the summary sheet that we saw earlier on. And once this is complete, we will get back into this installation demonstration. As SQL Server is installing, you can see that it gives you the status of the installation, and also it tells you what exactly setup is doing at the particular moment. So we're looking at installation that is about a quarter complete right now, and setup will go through all the steps to install SQL Server on this particular workstation. We can see that setup is almost complete. It's right now deleting all the temporary files that have been used in the installation. And if we look at the left hand at the list of tasks that he has done, find out that we are in the installation part, and the only part that is left is the complete installation. So in a few more moments, the install will be completed. In fact, it's completed right now, and you see that the complete screen. Let's wait while this information completes, and then we can talk about the screen, the complete screen. Actually, you can, once you click install, you can leave, because it's an unattended installation at that point, and it takes a while. So you can actually go get yourself a break and do whatever you need to do, and your installation will go on by itself. So now that setup has completed installation, we find out that all the features that we installed have been successful, going by the status, and we can look at everything that we have been able to install. We have seen that everything is successful. If there are any errors, which I hope by now there wouldn't be any, you will find it in this setup complete page. So this is information to books online that we'll be talking about later, and we have successfully installed SQL Server 2012 on Windows 8 computer. So alright, so now that we have successfully installed our SQL Server 2012 on Windows 8, let's go look for our new installation. So if you're using a prior edition of Windows, you know that you go through Start, All Programs, and then you come to Microsoft SQL Server. But for Windows 8, you see that we have our SQL Server tool that we just installed. This is our Management Studio right here, and we can click this to verify our installation. See, Management Studio starts up with this powered by Visual Studio. A good incorporation into Management Studio is the Visual Studio, and it takes a while to start Management Studio up for the first installation. And yep, here we go. Our SQL Server 2012 has been installed. This is our connect to server, which tells us the name of the computer that we are running, has the server name, and then Windows authentication, and we can click connect. Windows Server talks to the services, the Windows services that starts off SQL Server, and then we can see our Object Explorer here. Our databases just contains the system databases for right now. On a subsequent edition, we shall be installing some user database for practice. So we have successfully installed SQL Server Management Studio with all its features on our Elmo computer, and we are ready to go. So thank you so much for viewing this production from Hillview University. If you have any question or need assistance, just contact me and I will be able to walk you through. Thanks again for viewing.